Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacey Van Dyke. Worldwide condemnation is pouring in hours after Russia began what U.S. defense officials are calling the initial phase of a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. President Biden announced tough new sanctions on more Russian banks and imports, stopping short of sanctioning its leader, Vladimir Putin. The president says that option is still on the table. Natalie Brand is at the White House with the latest.
By land and by air, Russian military forces continue to advance their invasion of Ukraine, which began late Wednesday night. The Pentagon says Russia fired roughly 100 missiles in this initial phase, targeting Ukraine's military infrastructure and highly populated residential areas.
Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
After meetings with his national security team and then G7 world leaders, President Biden unveiled what he describes as unprecedented sanctions against Russia.
We estimate that we'll cut off more than half of Russia's high-tech imports. It'll strike a blow to their ability to continue to modernize their military. It'll degrade their aerospace industry, including their space program.
Meanwhile, NATO says it will activate defense plans to protect its eastern flank. A U.S. defense official says around 7,000 additional U.S. troops will deploy to Germany. President Biden says he will not send U.S. forces into Ukraine. They are there to shore up NATO, though the U.S. has sent hundreds of millions of dollars in military equipment to help Ukrainians defend their country.
We do not expect anyone to fight for us, but we expect all the help and all the response the West can send to us.
U.S. forces in Poland have set up camps to receive refugees from Ukraine, while loved ones here in the U.S. fear for their safety.
It's painful to see my family being on both sides, being in Ukraine and being in Russia.
Demonstrators took to the streets around the U.S. to stand in solidarity with Ukraine. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Members of Congress from both sides of the aisle have been largely united in their condemnation of Putin. They're receiving an unclassified briefing from top Biden administration officials this afternoon. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is causing global concerns for food and energy prices to rise even more. Crude oil surged above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2014. Crude prices have jumped more than $20 on fears of sanctions on Russia's energy sector. Russia and Ukraine are also both major global suppliers of corn and wheat. President Biden said today he's working to limit the impact on Americans.
As we respond, my administration is using the tools, every tool at its disposal, to protect American families and businesses from rising prices at the gas pump. You know, we're taking active steps to bring down the cost, and American oil and gas companies should not exploit this moment to hike their prices to raise profits.
President Biden went on to say he's working with major oil producing and consuming countries to secure energy resources, though some leaders, including North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer, criticized the administration for energy policies that made the U.S. dependent on foreign oil. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum released a statement today regarding Russia's attack on Ukraine, saying in part, this international crisis underscores the importance of U.S. energy security and increasing American production. Hutch joins us now with a first look at your forecast. Hutch?
Stacey, thanks so much. That's a pretty good looking shot there at the Luther Family Ford location. Some blue skies and not a lot of wind as temperatures have worked their way up above zero once again for the second straight day. In fact, right now out at Hector, it is 3 degrees. We have 6 in Thief River Falls and Baudette, and off to the west, Jamestown at 5 degrees. So single digits aplenty across the area. Wind chills between 5 and 15 below at this hour. Not overly windy, generally around 5 to 15 miles per hour. We do have wind chill advisories for much of our viewing area, with the exception of central Minnesota and portions of Lakes Country. It's going to be another cool and crisp night with dangerous wind chills for some. Snow, if you're heading down the Twin Cities, making its way in. For us, we're on the far north side of that. In fact, we're staying clear, and that clear skies means once the sun sets, folks, it's going to get chilly very quickly once again. By the midnight hour, we'll be approaching those teens below zero with wind chills between 15 and 30 below. Colder still up north and out to the east. As the coldest air shifts east, it's out of here by tomorrow. We begin a warming trend after a very frigid morning on your Friday. Details coming up here. Stacey. in a few moments.
Good news there. Thanks so much, Hutch. New information on the man who was found dead in rural Kidder County on Monday. The sheriff says 56-year-old Timothy Becker likely died from the blizzard conditions. He was found in a ditch along Highway 36. The sheriff says it appears he got lost in whiteout conditions and left his vehicle after turning onto a low-maintenance road. An autopsy is being conducted. Carrington police made a major drug bust when they found 290 pounds of cocaine Friday. The person with the cocaine was arrested. Their name is not being released. Authorities say the street value of the drugs is around $5 million. The investigation into the bust is ongoing. A verdict could come at any minute as jurors are on the second day of deliberation in the federal trial of 3 former Minneapolis police officers charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights. The judge has sealed the jurors' identities for at least 10 years. Federal law allows him to do so in the interest of justice, and the judge says this is clearly such a case because of the significant public attention the trial has generated. The parents of a 15-year-old who shot and killed 4 classmates at a Michigan high school were back in court today. Jennifer and James Crumbly sat in shackles at the same table as more evidence was presented in their preliminary hearing. The judge hearing the case will have to decide if there's enough evidence for the couple to stand trial for involuntary manslaughter for making the gun used in that school shooting available to their son. Prosecutors also claim the couple didn't do enough to help their son when he exhibited signs of mental distress. Crumbly's attorney claimed the couple had no idea their son was planning an attack at his high school. 32 school districts across Minnesota will soon be receiving money to outfit school buses with stop-arm cameras, thanks to new funding from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. The Underwood District was granted $5,500 to install cameras and software on their 5 buses that don't already have them. Once installed, every bus route will be able to record drivers who illegally pass the bus.
When they're driving in town, you can see people talking on their phone and not even seeing this big yellow bus that's next to them. And then sometimes on the highway routes, buses are coming up to cars that are going fast and people don't even slow down. They just breeze by.
Since 2017, more than 4,500 drivers have been cited in Minnesota for violating school bus stop-arm laws. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has made a formal push for the Senate to pass the Women's Health Protection Act after setting the Senate vote for Monday. The New York senator was joined by local and national women's choice advocates and abortion care experts at a press conference in New York City today.
This is one of the most fundamental issues facing the American people, and each person finally will have the right to see how their senators vote.
Senator Schumer says the legislation will safeguard Roe v. Wade by ensuring the constitutional right to abortion is enshrined in federal law and available to everyone, no matter their zip code. With large snow piles around town, there's concern about spring flooding. The risk for significant snowmelt has only increased slightly since our recent snow events. That's according to the latest National Weather Service flood outlook released today. We learned the city has 30,000 filled sandbags on hand and more than 1 million unfilled bags ready to go. Our First Alert storm team says a lot can change, and the speed that all the snow melts will be a critical factor. An iconic part of downtown Fargo is for sale. The Hotel Donaldson is listed on an online commercial real estate website for nearly $4 million. The building is located on the corner of First Avenue North and Broadway. The website describes it as a luxury hotel with 17 suites, 2 ground floor restaurants, a wine cellar, and a tasting room, plus that rooftop bar. At this time, the hotel is open, but the hotel lounge has been closed since the summer of 2020. In health news, here's another reason to get those household chores done. It could help lower your risk of heart disease. That's according to a new study in the Journal of the American Heart Association. In today's Health Minute, Mary Maloney has a closer look at why small daily movements can have a big impact.
Want to boost your heart health? Running marathons or doing intense workouts aren't the only way. Simple household chores may be all you need.
Our study shows that just about any movement counts.
Steve Nguyen is the lead author of a new study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association. A team of researchers at UC San Diego measured the physical activity of more than 5,000 American women between the ages of 63 and 97 and discovered doing chores like washing dishes, vacuuming, and cooking lowered their heart disease risk.
Any housework that we do, working in the kitchen, gardening, sort of all sorts of daily living activities.
The study found women who spent engaged in what they call daily life movement for at least 4 hours had a 43% lower risk of developing either cardiovascular disease or coronary heart disease, which includes heart attacks. They also had a 30% lower risk of stroke and a 62% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. Researchers say the study could change how healthcare providers and caregivers discuss physical activity with patients.
Our hearts and cardiovascular systems do not particularly distinguish whether we're getting our movement through walking or running or through daily life movement.
Researchers say people of all ages could see a similar benefit.
We have no reason to think that there would not be benefit. We would just like to replicate our findings.
I'm Mary Maloney.
Researchers say this study builds on previous research showing light physical activity does indeed have health benefits. As we look back at Black History Month, the family tree of some of the first black settlers in Minnesota extends to Valley News Team's Kaylee Chella, but those family roots were a secret that she only recently discovered. Saturday at 5 p.m., Kaylee takes us on an incredible journey exploring those family roots that her grandmother took to her grave. Catch Rooted in Secrets, a Black History Month special, Saturday at 5 p.m. on KBLY.